Have you ever wondered why a man who seems deeply interested in you suddenly pulls away, goes quiet, or becomes unpredictable right when the connection starts to feel real? It's not random, and it's not always a mind game. It's often something much deeper, something even he may not fully understand. When a man begins falling for you, he doesn't simply fall. He questions, he hesitates, and he tests. And these tests aren't done to confuse you or gain power. They come from a deep, instinctive need to know if what he feels is safe enough to surrender to, stable enough to trust, and real enough to invest in. What he checks is not your beauty, not your charm, and not even the sweet words you say. What he looks for is your emotional truth, the part of you that can't be faked. Your reactions, your tone, how you show up, how you stay calm or fall apart. Those speak louder to him than any "I love you" ever could. When a man starts falling for a woman, something meaningful begins happening inside him, deep in the unconscious layers he rarely visits. He doesn't just see the woman in front of him, he begins to merge her with an inner image he has carried for years. This image is shaped by childhood memories, cultural ideas, fantasies he never voiced, and emotional experiences that marked him. It's like a blueprint of the feminine presence he longs for, but doesn't fully understand. He doesn't consciously choose this image. It lives inside him quietly, shaping his attraction in ways he cannot explain. And when you reflect even a part of that inner picture, maybe in the way you speak, laugh, respond, or simply exist, something wakes up in him. It feels powerful, consuming, almost destined. This is why his feelings sometimes seem too strong too soon. He's not only reacting to who you are, but to the echo of the woman he once imagined or dreamed about. This projection can make him adore you intensely, but it can also make him feel uncertain, because now he must figure out if the real you matches the image he carries inside. And that's where his tests begin. He tests not because he wants to trick you, but because his mind is trying to confirm what his heart is already feeling. He may create small emotional scenarios, often without even realizing it, to see how you respond. He might ask a question in a certain tone, take a step back when things feel too good, or even behave in a slightly distant way just to watch how you react when you feel unsure. These micro-tests are not calculated strategies. They are his soul looking for alignment between the ideal he holds and the reality he sees. His reactions during this period may not always make sense logically. He may come close and then pull away. He may talk like he wants you and then act like he is unsure. Inside him, a silent conversation is going on, one that even he struggles to explain. If something about you breaks the image he projected, maybe you react differently than he expected or reveal a part of yourself he didn't imagine, his mind feels a sudden tension. Something doesn't match, and this mismatch makes him step back, not because you are wrong for him, but because he must adjust his inner world. In many cases, he thought he was falling for an ideal, and now he has to learn to fall for the real person. That shift can be overwhelming, and the only way he knows how to handle the confusion is by distancing himself until his emotions settle. But the truth is, his tests are not truly about you. They are about his own fears, hopes, and hidden expectations. If you respond in ways that match the emotional qualities he longs for, calmness, warmth, authenticity, emotional maturity, his feelings deepen. If your reactions break the fantasy, he pulls away not because you did something wrong, but because he is forced to face the uncomfortable truth that you are not the imaginary figure in his mind. You're real, human, layered. And that can be scary when a man is used to loving from a distance. Falling in love is not just about choosing someone. For him, it becomes a mirror that reflects parts of himself he avoided for years. The closer he feels to you, the more his inner world rises, his hopes, his wounds, his desires, and especially his shadow. The shadow is the part of his psyche that holds everything he pushed down: insecurity, fear of rejection, fear of vulnerability, jealousy, past heartbreak, and the emotions he never learned to handle. Love brings the shadow closer to the surface because love makes him open, unguarded, and emotionally exposed. As this shadow rises, he often reacts in ways that are confusing. He might test your loyalty over small things, question your intentions, or challenge your opinions not because he doubts you, but because he doubts himself. His mind whispers thoughts like, "Will she accept the parts of me I hide?" Or, "Will she leave if she sees the messy side of me?" These fears become emotional tests, often subtle but powerful. He watches how you respond when he withdraws for a moment, when he gets irritated, when he feels insecure, or when he becomes emotionally quiet. Your reaction tells him what words never could. If you respond with steadiness, patience, or a calm presence, something inside him softens. His anxiety loosens its grip and his shadow steps back. But if you meet his fear with fear, or his confusion with more confusion, he may pull away to protect himself from the idea that his darker parts are too much. These tests are not fair and not always conscious, but they are real. They reveal not his judgment of you, but his fear of being unlovable, his fear of giving his heart to someone who might break it, and his fear of losing control of his emotions. At the end of it all, a man's tests during love are not trials for you to pass. They are reflections of his inner struggle. They are signs that he is not just falling for you, he is confronting himself through you. And the way you respond doesn't just tell him who you are, it tells him whether he is safe to love, whether he is safe to open, and whether he is safe to let go of everything he has been guarding for years. These emotional tests also help him sense her depth. He wants to understand whether she can hold emotional complexity, whether she can stay steady when he feels overwhelmed, confused, or emotionally tangled. These are moments when his inner world reaches out silently, almost asking if her presence is strong enough to hold what he cannot yet name, explain, or control. The emotional pressure he creates is like a personal ritual, an inner fire that tries to burn away anything superficial so he can touch something real, honest, and deeply human. The ironic part is that she may think he's examining her morals, her personality, or her behavior, but in truth, he is reacting to the parts of himself rising to the surface. Through these exchanges, he is not only falling for her, he is meeting parts of his own soul he has avoided. And whether he steps closer or creates distance depends heavily on whether these shadow-born tests are met with patience or met with resistance. In this way, love stops being a fantasy or escape and becomes a space where transformation begins. His emotional challenges become the psyche's push to move from fear into closeness, from self-protection into connection, from defense into surrender. These tests are not about winning anything or failing anything. They are moments that reveal whether love can hold the pieces of him he has kept hidden from everyone, including himself. When a man starts to care deeply for a woman, he also begins to test the strength and clarity of her boundaries. This isn't because he wants to break them or control her. It's because he needs to feel the kind of emotional safety that comes from her stability. The masculine mind, especially when opening up to love, carries deep fears of being swallowed, controlled, or losing himself inside the relationship. These fears rarely get spoken out loud, yet they push him to press gently on the edges of her self-respect, her independence, and her emotional balance. He might make small teasing remarks, become inconsistent with messages, or inch slightly into her emotional or physical space. Not to dominate, but to see if she stands firmly or loses herself trying to please him. If she responds with over-accommodation or behaves like her comfort doesn't matter, it can signal to him unconsciously that she cannot hold her own center. This makes him feel less emotionally secure, even if he can't explain why. But if she responds with warmth while still honoring her boundaries, if she expresses her needs clearly, or keeps her rhythm steady when he pushes slightly, something inside him relaxes. He begins to feel trust toward her because her strength tells him something important. She won't collapse into him or disappear inside the relationship. This trust is not just about what she does. It is about how her inner strength reflects back to him his own need for emotional containment. He wants to feel that her boundaries can handle his uncertainty, his moods, his silence, and the unpredictability that comes with emotional closeness. He wants to know that if he steps too far, she will correct him with clarity, not coldness, firmness, not anger, self-respect, not rejection. These qualities reassure the deeper parts of him that loving her will not cost him his individuality. The boundary testing can be subtle but powerful. He might cancel plans last minute to see how she responds, not because he wants to hurt her, but because he is watching whether she spirals into insecurity or calmly expresses her feelings. He might use a little ambiguity in conversation, not to toy with her, but to observe whether she asks for clarity or loses herself in fear. Every reaction tells him something about her emotional world. If she responds with balance, self-worth, and gentle honesty, he feels safe to open himself further. He realizes she won't control him or depend on him for every emotional need, and that makes him feel free to lean into the relationship. These tests are rarely conscious choices, and they should not be mistaken for manipulation. They are psychological attempts to find emotional footing, especially when feelings are becoming deep and serious. The masculine psyche is searching for evidence that closeness will not trap him or drown him. A woman's boundaries in this sense are not barriers. They are the structure that gives him permission to come closer without losing himself. They show him that she is rooted enough to love him without collapsing, strong enough to receive him without absorbing his identity, and clear enough to let the connection grow without becoming chaotic. Her ability to remain calm and self-possessed during his subtle testing often becomes the very thing that strengthens his trust and pulls him deeper into emotional intimacy. When a man begins to fall in love, he experiences a subtle inner conflict between wanting to move closer and fearing he could disappear inside the closeness. This tension often shows up as withdrawal, a quiet step back, a pause in communication, a distance that feels confusing or even painful to the woman. But his withdrawal is not always a conscious choice, nor is it a rejection of her. It comes from a psychological need to check the emotional environment of the relationship without risking all of himself at once. He needs to know if the connection will stay steady even when he takes a step back. He wants to see whether she panics, waits, pressures him, or holds her ground with calm confidence. So he pulls away a little. He might reply slower. He might cancel plans unexpectedly. He might seem distracted or less affectionate. He creates space not to abandon her, but to listen to his own emotions, to see what rises in that silence, and to observe how she handles the shift. He's wondering, will she hold her center when I step back? Will the connection stay grounded? Will she respect my need for space without assuming the worst? And most importantly, will she stay emotionally open without losing her self-worth? What he is really searching for in these small disappearances is emotional safety. The kind of safety that tells him he can love her without being consumed, judged, or pressured. His silence becomes a test, not of her love, but of the relationship's stability. If she remains steady, patient, and open, he slowly returns with even more attachment. Because in her steadiness, he finds the reassurance that love with her can be a place where he doesn't have to lose himself to stay close. While on the surface this can look like he is losing interest, Underneath it is a carefully watched moment. He is paying close attention to what she does when he steps back. He wants to see if she becomes needy, starts chasing him, gets angry, or if she stays steady, composed, and emotionally secure. The way she responds tells him something important, not just about her actions, but about the emotional foundation she stands on. His withdrawal becomes a kind of emotional mirror test. He is trying to see whether her feelings come from true connection or from attachment fear. He wants to know if her affection is strong enough to give him space when he needs it, and whether she can trust the connection even when he becomes quiet. He needs to feel that his temporary absence won't break the bond, won't drown her in anxiety, and won't force him into a role he isn't emotionally ready to step into. His fear during this time often comes from old wounds or deeper layers of vulnerability where love in the past has brought pain, loss of self, or emotional collapse. So when he pulls back, it is almost like a tide receding before deciding whether to return. If she handles the distance with grace, staying emotionally centered without punishing him, chasing him, or begging for attention, it signals to him that she has an inner stability strong enough to carry the weight of a real relationship. Her steadiness tells him she understands that space is not abandonment, that silence is not rejection, and that moments of separation can actually strengthen trust. But if she responds with panic, emotional swings, accusations, or desperate attempts to pull him back, he may feel unconsciously confirmed in his fear that closeness creates chaos. His pullback is not about testing her worth, but about testing the emotional atmosphere. He wants to know if the relationship can breathe. His withdrawal is not a tactic, it is a coping mechanism, an instinctive way of managing emotions that feel too big too fast. Love, especially in its early stages, can feel like free fall. Stepping back gives him a moment to grab onto something solid inside himself, a moment to breathe, a moment to understand whether he is falling into something nourishing or something overwhelming. The way she acts during this pause becomes more than a simple reaction. It becomes the emotional reflection of the world he is stepping into. Her response often decides whether he comes back more open, more trusting, more ready to invest, or whether he moves further into distance and emotional caution. When a man is falling in love, he becomes highly sensitive to how she handles emotional turbulence, not only her own turbulence, but his as well. As his feelings grow, he begins to test her emotional resilience without even planning to. He is not trying to break her or challenge her for fun, but he wants to see whether she can remain steady when things are not perfect. Life never stays calm forever. Emotional resilience becomes one of the most attractive qualities he looks for because it shows him that she can handle storms without falling apart. Whether he realizes it consciously or not, he watches for this as a sign of long-term compatibility. He may introduce small disagreements or contradict himself. He might create sudden moments of uncertainty just to see how she behaves when the smoothness disappears. These moments are not games. They are unconscious expressions of his desire to know whether she can stay present when emotions get messy. He might become distant for a day, get moody, or seem irritated for reasons even he doesn't fully understand. He doesn't want to hurt her. He is simply wrestling with inner tension, the clash between wanting closeness and fearing vulnerability. How she reacts during these moments tells him more about her emotional world than anything she could ever explain verbally. When things are calm, it is easy to be kind and connected, but when discomfort enters the room, whether through his silence, his confusion, or his emotional heaviness, he watches whether she can stay rooted. If she remains connected to her truth, if she responds with compassion, clarity, or a steady presence, he sees in her someone he can trust deeply. He pays attention to whether she shames him for pulling back or whether she gives him space without shutting down. He is learning silently whether she allows emotional contrast or demands perfect harmony at the cost of honesty. Her ability to stay emotionally present without losing herself is not only beautiful, it is deeply calming for him. It tells him that when real life happens, when stress rises, when past wounds get triggered, when confusion hits, she will not crumble, explode, or abandon the connection. This emotional maturity creates a peace inside him that he rarely feels anywhere else. It invites him to take off the emotional armor he usually wears, to soften and to lean more fully into the connection. If she reacts to these difficult moments with panic, blame, sharp accusations, or emotional instability, he may begin to retreat, not because he wants to leave, but because he senses that the emotional environment might not be strong enough to hold real intimacy. Emotional resilience does not mean she must be perfect or always calm. It means she can feel deeply without being overwhelmed by the feelings. He is instinctively drawn to a woman who can face chaos without becoming chaotic, who can feel disappointment without turning bitter, and who can love without trying to control. These subtle, unplanned tests allow him to see the landscape of her emotional life. Through these moments, he learns how she carries herself when things fall out of balance, when communication gets shaky, when emotions surge, and when closeness becomes uncomfortable. And the way she holds herself during these moments becomes one of the greatest indicators of whether he can trust the relationship with his heart. He watches how her love reacts when things become complicated, not just when everything is soft and easy. He pays attention to whether her affection grows wide enough to hold the messy parts of life, or whether it shrinks the moment fear shows up. In those quiet observations, he starts to understand whether she can truly walk beside him emotionally, not only during the beautiful moments, but also during the honest, imperfect, everyday reality of a shared life. And when a man starts falling for a woman, one of the most private and tender tests he unconsciously sets in motion is the moment he begins to reveal pieces of his flaws, insecurities, or old wounds to see how she handles them. It is rarely a planned confession. Instead, it's a slow opening, almost accidental, hidden inside small comments, casual stories, or a sudden moment of honesty that slips out of him before he can stop it. Sometimes it comes through a sigh, a quiet tone, or a soft truth he normally keeps locked away. These moments matter not because of the specific words he uses, but because of what they represent. He is showing her a part of himself that he usually hides from the world, the imperfect, uncertain, or still healing part that doesn't match the strong image he often carries in front of others. By exposing something that goes against his usual confident exterior, he is silently asking a question he cannot say out loud. Is her heart big enough to hold all of him? Not only the sides that are impressive, attractive, or admirable, but the parts that feel messy, unsure, or human. These little revelations may seem minor on the surface. Maybe he mentions a mistake he made years ago, or he admits a quiet fear about his future, or he expresses doubt about relationships because of what he has lived through. But to him, these things are not small at all. They are symbolic. They represent a deeper emotional test to see if she sees him as a complete person, or only as an ideal version he showed at the beginning. And in those fragile moments, he watches her carefully. He pays attention not only to her words, but to everything around them, her tone, her eyes, the pause before she answers, the way she breathes, whether her body stays open or pulls away. He listens for any sign of judgment, for even a hint of disappointment, or for a sudden emotional distance that tells him she only feels comfortable when he is strong, controlled, or perfectly put together. If she answers with empathy, calmness, and genuine presence, something inside him loosens. It feels like a deep exhale he has been holding for years. Her acceptance tells him that he doesn't need to divide himself into pieces to be loved. He can be whole with her. He can be real. But if she reacts with discomfort, or tries to rush past what he said, or becomes dismissive without meaning to, he may begin to withdraw. Not because she rejected him outright, but because her reaction touches an old fear he carries. The fear that being truly seen means being unsafe. To him, exposure has always carried the possibility of pain. So when she pulls back emotionally, even slightly, he may instinctively retreat into the safer version of himself. He may become quieter, lighter, or more guarded. He may act as if everything is normal, but inside he has taken note, and a part of him steps back to protect himself. This inner test is rarely something he fully understands about himself. He doesn't wake up thinking, "Today I will test her." It just happens naturally. It spills out in the middle of a random conversation or after a long day when his guard is tired. And often, the moment he shares something vulnerable, he immediately tries to cover it up by changing the subject or making a joke or pretending it wasn't a big deal. But deep inside, he remembers exactly how she responded. That memory becomes a quiet emotional marker of how safe he feels continuing to open up. For him, love is not only about connection. It is also about emotional safety, about whether the relationship has enough space to hold truth without collapsing. He wonders silently, can she sit with his truth without trying to erase it? Can she listen to his pain without turning it into something about herself? Can she stay steady even when he is not at his strongest? He does not ask these questions directly, but they shape everything. They influence whether he moves closer or protects himself. A woman's ability to receive his vulnerability with patience and warmth shows him that she is capable of embracing the whole man, not just the shiny and flawless version. In this gentle but powerful way, her reaction to his imperfect moments becomes one of the most defining turning points of the relationship. It reveals whether love between them can actually grow from truth, or if it must stay on the surface, where everything looks perfect but nothing feels real. When a man is falling in love, his emotions do not always show up in clean words or simple explanations. Much of what he does comes in symbols, small actions, mixed signals, sudden closeness, sudden distance, and tiny emotional risks shaped by his hidden fears and hopes. What may look like confusion or hesitation is rarely manipulation. It is his inner world trying to understand if this connection is safe enough, deep enough, and genuine enough. These quiet tests are not meant to measure her worth. They are simply his way of discovering whether the bond they are creating can carry real emotional truth. He is not expecting her to be perfect. He doesn't need her to have all the answers. What he wants, what he deeply searches for, is presence, self-awareness, emotional steadiness, and the ability to stay connected even when things are not easy. He wants to know if her love can meet his full self, the parts that stand strong and the parts that feel uncertain. These unspoken tests aren't about passing or failing. They are about revealing. And in the way she responds, not only through her words but through her energy and emotional steadiness, she shows him whether their connection is something temporary or the quiet beginning of something lasting and meaningful. Something that feels like truth, something that feels like home.